So, welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Yokai. And today, I figured I'd go over a question that I have gotten quite a few times, especially from people who know nothing about Gundam. And, they happen to be someone who comes over to the house for the first time or whatever. And they see my collection of kits and they're like, these are so cool. Where do you get these? Kind of idea. And that's a real common question I get, and I've seen it in other online forums and stuff, is where do you get these? How do you get them? And even though I'm going to go over this in probably more detail in part 8 of my Gundam for Beginners guide, or Gundam Beginners guide, I'm going to go over how to get the kits. Here, I'm actually going to go over the 3 places that I mainly get my kits from and give you the pros and cons to them. I feel like I should do it this way because I'm going to go over how to get them anyways in the next guide video, which will probably be out in a little next week or so, hopefully. Not making any promises though. Anyways, with that being said, let's get into it. So, this isn't going to be a top list or anything. It's just going to be me going over the 3 that I've used. I technically have used 4, but the 4th one was just some random site that I do not remember the name of, and it was probably very sketchy to actually buy it from there. It also wasn't great because it took like 2 months to get the product anyways. So really, it wasn't worth it. But that's not what's important. What's important is the 3 that I do remember. Obviously, I'm going to go with my least favorite, but definitely one that's going to be really common for people, which is Amazon. So we all know Amazon. A very common place to go online and shop for things that you want. But unfortunately, sometimes when you're looking for Gundam kits, Amazon is going to be your last bastion. There's been a few times when I've checked other sites that I like to go to that unfortunately didn't have the kit that I was looking for, but Amazon did. So, what are the things that make it good and bad versus the other ones? Well, price is about average. It's not as expensive as the one of the other places on this list, but it's also not as cheap as the other one on this list. Also, that meant that it's kind of in the middle, so it's not too bad, but at the same time, you feel like you're not really getting much of a deal, especially after any kind of shipping cost, if there is any. But, that's just how it is sometimes. The worst thing would be shipping times. The shipping times are horrendous. This is because sometimes when you're going through the stuff, you don't notice it, but it occasionally will tell you, sometimes, not always, what warehouse the kit is stored in. And sometimes it will tell you the location, such as USA, Japan, China, wherever. And unfortunately, sometimes with these kits, they're in Japan. Now, one cool thing is that most of these warehouses are not actual Amazon warehouses, but small mom and pop shops, model kit shops, if you will, of just random people who have their own modeling store in the area who are acting as a warehouse for Amazon in case someone purchases that kit. And I've had that happen to me a few times. But regardless if it's like that or in an actual Amazon warehouse, the problem is that if it's in Japan, Korea, or China, it's going to take a while to get to you because they don't fly it in. They don't fly it on huge cargo planes. They put it on huge cargo ships. And, it takes a while for them to get to the States. And also, you have to keep in mind how long it takes it to travel from wherever the product was at in Japan to a distribution center that sent it to Japanese customs that finally put it in, gave it the go ahead to go through. And then finally it gets put into a cargo container and then put onto a ship. And who knows how long it takes for that ship to get full. And finally, once it does get full, that's when it starts its voyage. And it takes about probably 3 weeks to a month for it to get from Japan to America, which would probably be California, because that's the closest state to Japan, technically, except for Hawaii. But I don't think Hawaii has any huge cargo ports. I could be wrong though, but I'm pretty sure they go to California and then unload it. And then, of course, you have to wait for them to get done with the inspection of the ship and then finally start unloading cargo. And then they start taking stuff out, and then it goes through customs and they open it up and they check it. And who knows how long it sits in customs, because, they have a bunch of stuff that probably has priority, like perishable items like food. So all that stuff has to go first and get inspected first. So basically, by the time your product gets to the States, it's already been 2 months, maybe less, but around 2 months for it to get to you. And then probably another month of just sitting in an American port somewhere waiting to go through customs. Or if it finally does go through, it's going to take a little bit for it to get from the port to a distribution center to the proper distribution center that sends it to your local, for me, it'd be snail mail. That's usually where it comes through. It goes through the U.S. Postal Service for me most of the time. To finally have them bring it to your doorstep, it takes about 3 months for all that to happen. So obviously, Amazon, at least when it comes to Gundam kits, typically have the worst, absolute worst wait times from purchase time to actually receiving your package. That really sucks. Now, the worst I've ever had to wait for a kit was about 5 months. But this is more or less because of a mistake. So, I was trying to buy the high-grade Leo when it came out. And I ended up finding, a warehouse that had one, and it said it had one left. So I bought it, not thinking anything of it. It said, you'll basically receive it in about 2 to 3 months' time, like typical. So I figured, it's just in a warehouse in Japan somewhere. But then 3 months go by and I don't see anything. I eventually call up and they said, well, what happened was someone actually purchased it before you. And because that ticket got pulled first and there's only one item and 2 people paid for it, the first person, obviously got the order. And the second person would have had to wait for a refill. But that particular item from that warehouse is not going to get restocked at all. So they had to refund my money just so I could repurchase it again. This time it was a little bit more expensive. But it took only 2 months to get. So 5 months in total for the Leo. That was the worst experience I ever had. And the fastest it ever took was about a month to 3 weeks. But that's probably because that particular kit was actually in an American warehouse somewhere in the States. And it just took a while for it to, get sent out. But like I said, when it comes to Gundam kits, Amazon has some pretty bad wait times. Now, it's not too bad in the middle of summer because there's not as many people ordering typically. But due to everybody staying indoors this last few years because of the coof, it's probably going to be just as bad as it would be if it was, Christmas or something. But normally, the summer would be easier and you'd get it faster. But it's been a while since I ordered a kit since all this started going down. So I couldn't tell you. But that's Amazon. Has decent prices, horrible wait times, but has a good catalog and is typically pretty stocked on just about any kit that you want. But of course, even they don't hold everything. So we're going to move on to the second one on this list. So the second one that I use pretty regularly, or I did use pretty regularly, was USA Gundam Store. Now, USA Gundam Store is obviously a station in the United States. It's in Florida, Daytona, I believe. And they are basically an online shop where pretty much all their services are done online, and they don't really have like a walk-in store, I don't think, but it's all online, and they sell mostly just Gundam kits, but they sell pretty much any Bandai kit that they can get their hands on, as well as, modeling products like paints and clippers and stuff, of course. But what's the pros and cons of this particular group from my experience? Well, my biggest problem with them is, their price. You would think that it being based in America would actually make it cheaper to purchase it because, you don't have to worry about international travel or anything. It's just traveling nationally. And I don't live too far from Florida. I'm still in a southern state. So it shouldn't take, that long, and it shouldn't be that expensive to send it out. But for some reason, their pricing is definitely a little too high. For example, you'd have a kit that should probably be no more than like $20, because it's probably the actual price of it for the store is probably like 18, maybe $16. And of course, you want to try and make a profit off that, so you put it up as like 22, $20, and that's all you really need to make a little bit of a profit off of it. But these guys will have a kit that should be like $20 or 22, being like 26 or 28, and maybe even $30 before any kind of extra shipping and handling fees and before taxes. So a kit that should technically only cost $20 is costing you like 34 or 36 or $38. Then if you put in the like a 10% discount code, it doesn't really feel like you got any discount, because basically all it does is take off the few dollars of taxes that get added to the order. So with it, instead of it being 38, it's like 36 or 35. It's not really, it doesn't feel like you got a discount, because you already feel like you're being ripped off. It already kind of feels like you're getting the product for more than you should. That really bothers me, because you would think that they would be better off, but for some reason they're not. Another problem that I have with them, more so than any other, is that their catalog will have all these things listed, but it will constantly have stuff that's out of stock. And I mean out of stock as in they're expecting a delivery, but they don't seem to get deliveries until like 6 months to a year. It's like their deliveries are so sparse that most items are always out of stock. And then whenever they finally do get restocked, the mad dash of everyone going to the site trying to get whatever item that they wanted that just got stocked, things go out of stock so fast that even if they got 120 of one particular kit, within a day, they're maybe two, they're gone. It just disappeared, it's gone, everybody's bought it now. So clearly, supply is a huge problem for them, because their demand is really high. Quite a few people use their site, but they don't have a good supply chain for whatever reason. So they'll have so many items that will say backlogged or back ordered, meaning that they've already ordered it and it's going to get added to their very large shipment, but they only get it once or twice a year when it comes to refills. And then you'll have items that will say out of stock, and then it will basically tell you this item is never going to be, used again. It's never going to be reordered. So you can never buy it from them if you want to. That means they have an item on their site that says will never be restocked. My problem with this is, why have it on here if it's never going to be restocked? Just remove it from the site. It will save you space and time and money on bandwidth and stuff. Just get rid of it. It makes no sense for items that are never going to be restocked to be on the site. Just remove them. The only ones that should stay are items that you're going to get restocks for, and obviously items that are available. And of course, that leads me to my last problem with their supply, is that they have so few items that are available that it almost feels sparse. Like, it feels so barren. You look up a certain show or grade or something, and you'll get all the ones, of course, that are in stock up at the top. But it doesn't take you very long to scroll down and start hitting the items that are out of stock. And then there'll be a few that are in between, because I think they have it in alphabetical order, but you'll see things in between stock and unstocked items. And eventually, you just start hitting nothing but not stocked or out of stock items very quickly. It won't take you too long to get to that point. So it almost feels like they have a very empty warehouse at all times. But they hardly ever get any refills, and then when they do, it just goes out so fast. Now maybe this is just me, but for about a 6-month period, I used them and never saw any kind of restock until about 6 months of using them. And then another 6 months went by, which was basically the next year, and I finally saw that they had another restock coming in, because they announced it. And I'm like, it took this long for them to get restocks? Like, I don't understand. It makes no sense to me. But those are the two major problems. What's the only good thing about USA Gundam Store that I could personally say? Well, their delivery times are killer. I'm not kidding. When you do order from them, which is the reason why I ordered from them in the first place, even though I didn't like the prices and even though I didn't like the supply, the items I did get, of course, I still wanted. And I was super happy because they got to me super quick. And basically, that's kind of what it feels like I'm paying for. It feels like I'm paying for extra fast shipping. I mean, literally, I've ordered an item from them, and then just a few hours later, the next day, it showed up at my door. I didn't expect that. That was the fastest it ever was from USA Gundam Store. The longest it ever took was about a week and a half. Not even a full 2 weeks. So when they get something out, they get it out fast. And it comes to me pretty quickly because I'm closer to the store and location. And it doesn't take too long to ship something from Florida to my state. Like I said, location. So it's not too bad. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time, but it could be as fast as getting it the next day, or it could take as long as waiting about a week and a half, not even a full 2 weeks. This is probably the best thing about them, and one of the only things that sometimes makes me check their store, just in case there's still something that I might want that isn't on Amazon or the other one at the top of this list, in my opinion. And in fact, I think we should move on to that one. So, at the tippy top of this list with only 3 items, yeah, it's probably not going to be a list video, but I just keep saying it because it makes it, flow better. Anyways, so getting back to it, number 1, oddly enough, is going to be Canadian Gundam. Now, for a lot of people thinking, why is Canadian Gundam on top of your list? You just said you live in the States and you live in the South. So you live way further from Canada than someone from like Maine, you know? And that's true. But Canadian Gundam, I feel, is the best out of all of them. For a handful of reasons. There is one negative though, but that's more so to do with me than it does with the store. So, they actually seem to have the best prices. They seem to be the cheapest. Like, their product, the amount of money that they get from selling a product doesn't seem like it's a whole lot. Like, they probably only get like $1 or $2 of profit from every kit that they sell. So it's like an item that should be 18 or should be 20 is like 22 or 21. Like, it's not outrageous. It feels like that's the price you should pay for that item. A little bit more than what the yen price is. And that makes sense because it had to be brought over. So paying like $2 or $3 extra, not really something that surprises any Gundam builder. But here, it's actually quite nice. Now, granted, it is Canadian, so you'll see the Canadian price, and then underneath it, you'll see the USD price. And obviously, due to how much Canadians have to pay for anything, it's ridiculous. But then if you look at the American price, you realize that, oh, I guess that's the same price, just in their money versus our money. Regardless, I'm happy that mine looks so much smaller. Makes me feel better about my purchase. But anyways, clearly that's a given that you're going to have both prices on there. But when it comes to the American prices, it's about what you would expect to pay, what you think you should pay, which I actually think is a really good way to get me to come back because it makes everything feel so much cheaper. Whenever I only have to pay like $2 or $3 extra more than what the yen price was, or is, I should say. It makes it feel more, like, just feels better. So it's like, yeah, I might have spent $80 on, a package from Canada, but I'm getting 4 high grades instead of only 1 master grade or something, Makes me feel like I've got more money, or I get my money's worth. And even if I do get a master grade and a couple of other kits, it still doesn't feel that much more expensive, which makes it more enjoyable to purchase from them. Also, they give a 10% discount code as well, and it actually feels like it takes off more than just a couple of dollars from taxes. But yeah, it feels pretty good. It's like, that's nice. I like that. So the discount actually gives you a discount. You actually see the price fall, and it's nice. Now, unfortunately, if you live in Canada, you get to experience the best thing about its pricing, which is a $10 flat rate shipping. Meaning anywhere in Canada, you only have to pay $10 for shipping, which is insane. Really low price. Great job. And these guys do everything that they can to keep the price low, which of course you have to respect. The only downside is that if you live in the States, you don't get that benefit and you have to pay $20 for shipping regardless of where you live. Only $10 more, but that's a whole extra kit basically. So that kind of sucks. They also have a weird fee, a weird thing called a private warehouse, where basically you pay for your item, but then you tell them to keep it, basically. So they store it for you, and then you keep buying more things, and you keep putting it into your private warehouse, and basically once you hit $300 of items that you have paid for, it becomes a free shipping, or something like that. And then you can basically order one more item and tack on your private warehouse, and then you get all those items at once for one, one uh, shipping and handling fee instead of multiple shipping and handling fees. It's pretty cool. And I think if you get to 300, he said it's free. I don't know if this works for the United States, but I know it probably works for Canadians. But it's still a pretty cool idea nonetheless. And that way, if you want to get a ton of items at one time, instead of smaller orders every time you order, you can just order a bunch of times throughout the year or whatever until you get to a certain amount of money, and then you can just send it all at once. Pretty cool little thing that they do for you. I don't really know exactly 100% how it works because I haven't done it, but that's kind of what he explained, it seems like, in his videos. That's another thing I like about them is that they also have their own YouTube channel, and you kind of get a taste of their personality, and they seem like way more enjoyable people. The other two just feel like faceless corporations, but this feels like a group of people or a company that has a face. It feels like a person you know, and that makes it so much better, in my opinion, to purchase from them. It makes me feel like I'm supporting something I care about in a way that makes me feel good about it, Another one, of course, is that they seem to have much better shipping and supply. They tend to have any kit that I've ever wanted, bar a few of them. But of course, that's going to happen regardless. But they tend to have a ton of kits. Only problem is that due to the coof and everything, they have definitely been hitting it harder when it comes to supply, because people have been ordering, and even though they'll get 2-3 skids full of kits and supply, that stuff gets sold so fast, it just kind of goes. So they've been experiencing shortages more so than they normally would, from what I understand. But once this probably goes away and we get things back to normal, they may not be in that same situation, hopefully, and that would be nice. But since so many people are stuck at home, they're ordering kits and stuff to do, and it's just taking time from them. But at the end of the day, supplies seems to be pretty good usually, but has been suffering as of late due to the coof. But the other one was suffering before the coof, so that's something that definitely still holds up against them. These guys were good before and still had lots of kits. Now they're running out, but they definitely usually have a pretty good supply and, lots of kits to choose from and stuff like that. So supply is good typically, but right now there is a lot of things that are out of stock. And really, the only major con that I have is that it takes too long for me to get my items, in my opinion. Yes, they are technically still in the Northern American continent, which I feel should be really quick. Unfortunately, it's still considered international travel because it's coming from Canada to the United States, which is a different country. This, of course, means it has to go through Canadian customs and then American customs at Canadian borders, and then it gets sent to distribution centers and finally to your whoever sends it to you, and then finally you get it at your door. It doesn't take as many steps, obviously, as it does if it was coming from Japan. So it doesn't take that long. But the longest I've ever had to wait was almost a full 2 months. About a month and 3 weeks. That kind of sucked, but that was probably more so due to other problems. At the end of the day, the longest I've ever had to wait was almost 2 months. The shortest I ever had to wait was about 3 weeks. So the average is about a month and a week, maybe a month. Not too bad, waiting on something that's coming from another country. So I can't really complain too much. But that's just because I'm an American and I know that. So if you are an American and you do want to try Canadian Gundam, because I do feel like they are the best at the moment and my personal favorite, they will also have longer wait times than USA Gundam Store and sometimes even Amazon, but typically Amazon will take more, especially if the item is coming from Japan. So, really, that's kind of the poison you have to pick. It's either longer wait times with Canadian Gundam, shorter wait times with USA Gundam Store, but you'll pay way more from USA Gundam Store and have less to choose from. Canadian Gundam, you'll have more to choose from and technically pay way less, but you'll have to wait a lot longer. So it's kind of like you have to pick your poison there. Which one would you rather do? Wait longer or be able to pay less, you know? But that's pretty much it for this video. You know, I know it was kind of long and probably not very intuitive or anything. But at the end of the day, this was just trying to get, you know, the message out there to you guys, whoever have the question of, where do I get them from? Well, those are 3 particular places you can go to get them from, and they're really good. There's a few others, of course, I can mention real quick, like Gundam Planet, but I haven't personally used them, so I don't know how good they are. I also haven't used eBay and anything like that, so I wouldn't try any of those necessarily, at least not at the moment. But when it comes to the 3 that I have tried, I'd recommend all of them, but for different reasons. And my personal favorite, of course, is Canadian Gundam. So that's it. I'm happy you stopped by and watched the video. Thank you. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, hit the like button if you enjoyed it. Comment and tell me your preferred place to get your kits at if you have one. And if you haven't ordered a kit yet, go ahead and think about doing it for any particular number one of these. And then you can use that kit for one of my guide videos that will be coming out soon. And going through that to understand how to build it further down the line. So you can use it for that if you want. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Yokai, your host, is out of here.